Feeling pressured over comparison, likes, statistics, and growth in general seems to be quite common among artists on social media. But don't make this mistake to grow your art account on Instagram, getting caught up in all of that over growing your art skills and maintaining a healthy mindset. I decided to make this video because I've been there. I want to show you the behind the scenes on how it is to create under pressure and why this happens in the first place, and what steps you can take to avoid that for yourself. Create what you want to create and do it at your own pace, especially if you're unhappy or feeling burned out right now. And after running a poll about the pressure to post in my stories a few months back and seeing more and more artists talking about that, I'm pretty sure now that a lot of us have gone through this or still are going through this as I speak. A little disclaimer before we start. This is my personal perspective on this topic based on my own experience. I'm just sharing all of that to help fellow artists who feel lonely on the platform, who don't know if what they're doing is right or normal, and who wonder how it is for others. I'm sharing my own experience to help, and frankly, it's a bit uncomfortable. So please keep that in mind and be aware that I realize not everyone cares about growing their art account on Instagram, or that not everyone feeling pressure to post or grow has the exact same experience and opinion about this as I do. If you want to, feel free to share in the comments below some constructive feedback and tips that can benefit everyone in a benevolent way, that can help people struggling with Instagram pressure, so we can help each other out and not the opposite. When I started my art account on Instagram back in November of 2018, I started from zero. I had zero connections in the art world online. At the time, I already knew I wanted to share my art and grow a following over time. But since everything was so new, I wasn't comparing myself to others, especially because artists with big accounts seemed so out of reach to me, and there was no obsessing over vanity metrics and all of that. Very few people started following me over a long period of time, which was quite discouraging at first, I must admit. And overall, I quickly noticed that no one was paying attention to small accounts like mine, which, let's be real here, does not feel great. Plus, on social media, as I see it, your level of skill is not what matters most. That's why so many amazing artists have such a tiny following. So don't get discouraged if you're putting in the work and things are slow going. On Instagram, you've got to play by the rules to get some visibility, and what matters is you've just got to be there. You've got to be consistent. You've got to let people know you're there again and again and again, day after day after day. And if you go with what trends, I think it helps too. It's how social media works, or what I've seen of it. It's probably nothing new to you either. And mostly people want to filter and follow others who are going to have something new to show on a regular basis. And we can't blame anyone for that. It's how things work. So naturally, I started feeling that to make connections, to belong in this community, to be taken more seriously and become more visible, the focus had to be on growing my account. And as you're probably guessing, this type of thought right there can lead to trouble, especially because it's no secret that to grow, to be taken seriously, again, you have to be active. So once I got that into my head, I started spending more time on the platform. I started looking around a bit more, and I realized a lot of people were actually already doing that. They were there. And at the time, I was only posting once to twice a week, which is not enough, I think, for an art account if you want to grow. So I decided to follow the trend and be super active like everyone else who was doing a great job on Instagram. There's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to be aware of what you're doing and not take it too far. And very honestly, for me, I never saw this as competing with others, more as competing with me being disciplined and motivated enough to create great content regularly, and it's not easy to do that. So while I was doing that, I started having more conversations with people, I grew my following a bit more, things were getting better, and I knew that even though there's much more to growing on Instagram than just posting, I knew that posting often was why I was doing better. No question about that. So after a year and a half on this platform, I started posting 4 to 5 times a week. I really focused on my art to improve my skills and make interesting content. Slowly, I increased my productivity to 7 times a week. And within 6 months, I grew from 800 subscribers to 10,000 subscribers. I'm not trying to tell you you have to post every day to grow. That is the only way. This is not the point of the video, nor the message I want to convey. It's just how things work for me. What I want to show you is that because this worked for me, I was posting quality content often. I was very happy and I started craving for more. And that's another thing I feel after the one for growth that can get out of hand quickly with social media. If you think about it, that's mostly human nature to always want more of everything. And this attitude can spiral into something uncontrollable and quite unhealthy if you open the door. Because then, as hard as it is for me to admit it, you start comparing yourself more. You start creating more for likes and comments and reach and all of that. For instance, I noticed that my skies were doing really well, so I did more of that. And don't take me wrong, I love painting them. I'll probably paint more of those. But when I noticed that trend with my account, I had to ask myself, is that what I want to be known for? No, it's not. I want to do a lot of things. There's so much more to explore for me. I was also, for a long time, extremely frustrated to see that some types of things seemed so much more popular than others. And I was frustrated because I was aware that there was a risk for me to get stuck into doing what everyone else is doing if I wasn't careful. Then I also resented that side of my art that I love, portraits, because with my accounts, portraits never seemed to do as well as much easier and faster projects, even though portraits take skill in anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, maybe more sometimes. Later, I realized my ego was taking over right there because I just couldn't get over the fact that skill is not all that matters, and as disappointing as this may be to some of you, skill alone really isn't enough with social media. It's important, it's a plus, but it's not enough. So I was still growing. I can't complain. It was great. But still, I was lost. I loved what I painted and I always had fun doing it since I get to pick my subjects every day. I never reached the point where I dislike it, thankfully. But I was aware that I couldn't keep on creating like that with that kind of mindset and frustration. That I needed to think long term and focus on how I wanted my art to evolve over time so I can be happy first. And not focus on what I assumed people liked the most and just basically paint for the sake of posting. While I was trying to figure it out, my reach decreased tremendously all of a sudden, without any reason I don't think, other than the fact that maybe it showed I didn't know what direction to take. I have no clue. So I can tell you that this too will mess up with your brain. The fact that things are going well, then all of a sudden it changes. And you know the Instagram algorithm is notorious for that, and you don't control your reach 100%. If you're in a place where you're hustling to improve your art and grow, it can be frustrating. It's hurtful when things slow down and you can't figure out why, especially if similar accounts are still growing. And see there, I only know that because of course I was comparing myself, which does not feel good. Worse, I started checking my statistics when I never did it before. I used to not care at all, and now I was trying to understand what was going on. I noticed a lot of people unfollowing me daily, which I'm sure always happened since the beginning because some people will do that, follow, unfollow. Only before I never looked, so I wasn't aware of it, and I felt much better about myself not knowing. With all that going on, I felt even more lost and also pressured to keep posting. I was getting wary, but that was not the right time for a break. Plus, a break was not something I felt I could take without disappointing my tribe since they were used to seeing me every day, and I had so many new people. I was also afraid to kill my reach even more with a break. I remember feeling anxiety and feeling stuck, like I'm on the hamster wheel and I can't stop. Now, I'm not going to be overdramatic either. The drop in my reach was not fun, especially if you don't know why it's this way, but let me tell you, I never felt depressed, I never lost sleep over that, and I did not dislike the creating process, I enjoyed it just as much. What I'm saying is I just made too big of a deal out of posting on Instagram, and it was stressful and reaching a point where I felt ridiculous. I want to say also that a good thing about posting frequently, aside from growth, is that I improved tremendously. I made some supportive, like-minded friends I talk to on a daily basis. Some of them will be watching and I'm sure they know who they are. And I made some connections with brands. So even though it hasn't been easy, there has been some growing pains, I would do it again, and I think this is just part of the journey of being an artist online. It's just better when you know you're not alone, and it's quite common to go through this. This is why I made this video. So now, here's where I can help you if you see yourself in this story. How do we grow without getting so caught up into likes and all of that, without compromising our skills for the long run? I have a few tips to give you because in August this year, I thought that enough was enough, so I took a 3 weeks break during which I posted some old works and swatches just a few times a week, as a way to not just vanish. But really, I was able to let go and I just stopped caring all that much. I asked myself a few questions that have helped me reframe the direction to take from my art, and I can only encourage you to do the same. If you're feeling pressure to post, ask yourself, why did I start creating art? And why do I share it on Instagram in the first place? If you did it because it's a fun or relaxing hobby and you just want to share it with people who understand you, don't stress yourself out with posting frequently just because you see so many artists being so consistent. Some of them use Instagram for an art business, so they need to be active. And be aware that following many artists also means seeing a bunch of beautiful posts mixed up every single time we open the app, which makes us easily feel worthless, especially if the week was not productive. I also opened up about my story today because on the outside, for those who have followed me for a while, I make it look like it's easy and I'm killing it, but the truth is we never know what others are going through. My guess is that Instagram feels like pressure to a lot of the consistent artists who look successful and confident from the outside at one time or another in their journey. I was surprised by all the messages I got that one time I asked if other people were feeling pressured, so I know for a fact it's a thing. Now, if you created your account to share and grow your following, then no one should judge, first of all. And I'd say go for it, but do it reasonably and try to stay aligned to what you want for your art. If the purpose is to grow and you're not because you barely post, I think creating daily or almost daily for a limited amount of time would be a good push to improve on your art and get a bit more visibility. Creating every day will get you into the habit of doing so, which is great because it comes more naturally afterwards. However, I wouldn't recommend to keep creating this much over a long period of time, unless you have the time and want for it, and you find it easy and fun, because for most of us it's physically and mentally not sustainable as I experienced it, and you don't want to rush doing art for the sake of being active, or like me, focus on what you think is trendy because it will not really benefit you or your people in the long run, and you'll end up feeling frustrated. Another question to ask yourself if you're feeling you're creating based on what seems to trend but you're not fully resonating with that is, what is your end goal? If you want to develop a style, sell your art, connect with galleries, then for sure ignore all the noise and work on your own style and on what you like. There's no guarantee hundreds of thousands of people will love this style, but at least you're going to be different, and if you're active, I didn't say super active, just active, being around 3 to 5 times a week maybe. There's no reason you wouldn't grow over time. And again, you can't always predict how things will be with Instagram. If you want to teach like me, and this was a hard one for me, but it really helped to remind myself of my goal, I think it's good to create for yourself sometimes, but also listen to what the people who are following you want to see, what they want to learn from you, what they're having trouble with. It makes sense, but it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that I wanted to teach. I should set my ego and personal tastes aside a bit and focus more on others. Now I know what direction I need to take, and like I said, I'm feeling much better and happier with my art. Nowadays, I do more of what I like in my realistic style, but I'll allocate more time creating specific tutorials that help other artists, like my tree tutorial in the previous video, for instance. Also, this October, I'm thinking of doing Inktober. I've been toying with the idea, and I keep changing my mind, and because I'm not sure I'll go through with it if it becomes too stressful, I decided to allow myself to stop at any point if I want to. I've wanted to do Inktober for the past 3 years, so I know that if I do go through with it, I won't have any regrets, and I will probably learn a lot about ink in the process, so it's a win-win for me. And with that example, you see how different that is from creating for the sake of posting, because here I have a personal goal to grow as an artist first. Most importantly, whatever you do or want to do, take a break before even burning out to keep enjoying the creating process. I have taken 2 or 3 days just to read before and relax. It would be a shame to stop art altogether because of the pressure to keep up with Instagram. Instead, take nice little breaks, take care of yourself, and take positive inspiration from what fellow artists are doing, knowing they too have their own struggles. Other artists are a huge part of why I'm still active and enjoying Instagram today, because I know we can relate on a lot of things and we have similar struggles. I sure hope this video helped you at the very least know that appearances are not what they might seem, and that it is never easy to create as an artist on social media. Even though the journey is fantastic, there will be growing pains, and it's easy nowadays to fall into that trap of getting caught up into the vanity metrics and comparing each other without really knowing how things really are like. If you enjoyed this, please like, share with other artists you know need this, and leave me a comment on here. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified of all my future videos. See you next time!